So I saw this little clip and I thought, he's right. He's spot on. This is the way that Ukraine wins the war. Okay, so Anton Gerashenko posted Danish military expert Anders Nielsen explains why it's so important to invest money into Ukrainian weapons productions. I've been constantly saying this for a long time. It's very important that Ukraine produces its own weapons and has the necessary funding to do so. So here is Anders Puck Nielsen. If you're not familiar with him, you ought to go to, I think it's at Anders Puck on YouTube. He's being interviewed by Jonathan Fink of Silicon Curtain. I'm just going to play what he has to say here, and it's really, really spot on. So let's hear what he has to say.
In the Ukrainian defense industry is investing in the Ukrainian defense industry is the most efficient way to use money here. We're just in a situation where the world sort of there isn't enough production capacity, and where there actually is surplus.
Okay, so let me interrupt for a moment. There is enough production capacity. There isn't the will to provide the production capacity to Ukraine. But Ukraine has the will, and to the degree that you can amplify their production, that's the quickest way out for them. Well, the quickest way out would be to just give them stuff. But the next quickest way out, the more meaningful, sustainable way is what he's describing here.
This production capacity is in Ukraine. So they need money to actually keep the factories running. But it is the way we can best increase the output of weapons. That is by sending money to Ukraine and into the Ukrainian defense industry. Otherwise, if Denmark goes out into the international markets, say, trying to order something on a factory in France or Great Britain or something to send to Ukraine, then we're just going to end up in an endless line, right? And we're going to get this equipment in 3, 4, 5 years' time, and by then it's too late. So since we don't have our own defense industry, then this is the best way we can contribute there. But I do think it's...
Now, this is really important too, because even if, let's say, the United States, the election coming up, Trump is potentially going to win, Kamala Harris potentially going to win. If Trump wins, and let's say he turned his back entirely on NATO, it's money that goes into a robust Ukrainian defense industry that will make it work. So even if it's not American arms or Western arms going to Ukraine, if you build their industry, they can still do the job if they have the fuel, which is simply money.
The way forward. I think it's the best way to get more arms to Ukraine quickly. It's the best way to get the arms that Ukraine really wants.
Right.
It's the best way to ensure that they get equipment that they can also maintain afterwards, so they don't end up with 50 different types of vehicles that they have to somehow maintain.
And so that point's really interesting, because right now they're getting all the Western hand-me-downs. Here, if they can go, it's almost like what happened with Southwest. Southwest Airlines in the United States is remarkably efficient because they have basically one type of plane, and they just work around that one rather than all these different types of planes. Same kind of thing. If they can just use their own homegrown production, because we can fuel their homegrown production, they can simplify the process. This is remarkably insightful.
And I do think we see other countries also following suit. Sweden, for example, has just also contributed that way, and I think it's a good recipe.
And of course,
Now, before Jonathan comments on that, I also want to add this. The extra benefit is that you avoid Biden's dilemma. Biden just doesn't want to escalate. I don't want to escalate. And so if it's homegrown production, you can't say that the U.S. is escalating because it's Ukrainian weapons or missiles or whatever going into the battlefield.
For artillery units, maybe the innovation cycle is years. In terms of drones, the innovation cycle is weeks and months now. And if the unit cost of those is too high, you cannot get that kind of innovation cycle going. Ukraine seems to have a kind of...
And Ukraine has been freaking brilliant with this kind of thing. Drones, last year, they did over 1 million drones. This year, or this coming year, they're going to be doing something north of 4 million drones. Now, Russia is catching up to that. They're wise to what, they announced 1 million drones in Ukraine. Russia will be pumping out 1.4 million next year, but they're behind the curve, so they're still behind in quantity as well as quality. And part of that is because of the corruption. I'm perpetually split about this. I see the corruption. I see the generals. Like I saw an article that I did not talk about this morning about Ivan, what's his name? Timur Ivanov, the general that is being charged with he stole a quarter of the money that was supposed to go into whatever it was, something boats or something. I don't remember, around the Crimean Bridge. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he stole a quarter of that money. I want that kind of Russian general to stay in power, at least in the short term, while they're fighting Ukraine. So, okay.
Sweet spot, doesn't it? Of you have a lot of tech entrepreneurs, you have the relatives and friends, and actually some of those tech entrepreneurs are on the front. There's an extraordinary exchange of information and ideas. And I know you've written quite a bit and done podcasts about these innovation cycles in military tech. This
Now this is really interesting too, because it mirrors Israel's experience, not in just war fighting itself, but Israel's experience of becoming the tech bubble over in the Middle East, and that's because part of the cross-pollination of the IDF forces, as they're mixing with other people that they otherwise wouldn't have had to mix with, has caused them to be really innovative. There articles, academic journal articles written about this kind of thing, that's what has actually spurred on their industry, because they're now rubbing shoulders with people that they otherwise wouldn't have spent their time with. So that's an interesting insight as well.
This is a fascinating area of development, isn't it? Which, in some respects, Ukraine is ahead of the curve when you compare it to the procurement processes in Western militaries.
Yeah, and he's right about that. Now, there's a couple things that I want to highlight here. One, there was a American Pentagon official that said something like, on a scale of 1 to 10, the Ukrainians are 12 in their abilities and their innovation and thinking through this. Right? They really are. They have been crazy ingenious. If necessity is the mother of invention, I mean, they have this in spades. But the other idea here is that what Anders was talking about from the very beginning, if the Ukrainians can grow their own homegrown defense industry, that is a cure long term. In the meantime, I would love to see Joe Biden say, yes, you can use these rockets and hit Russia, but he's not doing it. And when the Ukrainians have the homegrown ability to do that, that starts to cure everything. Okay, tell me what you think about this. I think this is the way that they win the war, but I could be wrong. What am I missing? Put it in the comments below. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes. Thank you for the coffees, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.